piece of the law that requires effectively a restitution hearing on the front end. That I'm not prepared to go forward with because I got all of the financial information for this cash bond yesterday at 5. They're asking for a significant amount of Miss Sykes money. I feel like I should have a little longer than a day to prepare for that. I would have said this even if I'd only had 20. I understand that the bird attorney is wanting this done and has wanted this to be done for 7 months. And, sorry about that. I had nothing to do with any of this. But yeah, I would like another date to actually review the topic with which we're going to be discussing. So that'd be the first order of business today. I don't believe the state's opposed to that.
It was my assumption that when we turned over all the discovery had been included in that, which was done out directly after the arraignment. When I sent just a reminder email yesterday to Mr. Vaughn, he had made me aware that that was the first time he had seen the financial documents.
Well, this is a case of first instance for this court, at least, and we've had a prior court hearing in which it was brought to my attention what was taking place. In the General Sessions Court, the General Sessions judge consolidated, put an order down consolidating the petition filed by the Animal Rescue Corporation, also known as ARC or ARC, seeking to have they have actual physical custody of the animals that were removed, and they have filed pursuant to statute to try to have a bond set by Ms. Sykes. If she intends to try to recover these animals, then she's going to have to pay for the cost of their upkeep, because right now that cost is being paid for by the Animal Rescue Corporation, Animal Rescue Corps. And under statute, they have a right to ask for a bond to be set to secure the cost of those upkeep of those animals. And if she's not able to do it by statute, then the animals would be surrendered, deemed to be surrendered, and would be allowed for Animal Rescue Corp to put them up for adoption, so that the cost of care for those animals is no longer being paid out of pocket by Animal Rescue Corps. It is an anomaly, so to speak, in that the state statute that Animal Rescue Corps is operating under allows them to intervene in a criminal case, even though they're a civil group, for the benefit of the minor children, the animals that were in question. So what is taking place right now is two things. I have the issue of we set this specifically for the bond issue to be heard so that Animal Rescue could deal with the cost of providing care for the animals. And then the other was your client has filed a pro se motion for supervised visitation and preservation of evidence, in which she is seeking to have supervised visitation with the 17 animals that were removed from her care and custody. So how long of a period and exactly why is it necessary for you to, number one, you were appointed to represent her on the criminal case. And
correct.
So it's unclear to this court. And I know we had this discussion the last time about whether or not you had any standing to represent her on the civil part, except for the fact that the two have been consolidated.
Right. And I know that I'm still confused as to the line for my exposure as my duties as a public defender. And, is this, do I need to go get malpractice insurance for this? Like, I would like a little more time to get familiar with this whole situation. I can hear the bird visit motion today. I'm down. I'm perfectly okay with that, but the rest of the stuff, I have no idea. It's fresh.
Well, you were appointed to represent Ms. Sykes on the criminal charge. And in my opinion, you have no obligation or duty as the public defender to represent her in the civil action that runs corollary or is correlated with it. In other words, if we have to have a hearing on her request for visitation or on the ARC's request for a bond to be posted, then I don't think that you have to be involved in that because of the simple fact. I mean, I know we've had discussions about this previously,
Right.
but I agree with you. It does seem to me to pose a question as to whether or not you as a criminal lawyer have any duty or obligation towards your client in the civil portion of this case. I mean, have you consulted with Mr. Mitchell about this scenario?
We've talked about it in the regard of just the facts and circumstances of the case, and he's as confused as anybody is about this bird stuff, Judge, to be honest.
Well, let me hear from the ARC's representatives, if you will. And Mr. Huddle, I'm going to give you an opportunity to be heard as well.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Jessica Schultz here on behalf of Animal Rescue Corps. We can refer to them as ARC for short. I appreciate your willingness to expedite this, to have this hearing today. A few things of response to Mr. Vaughn is that in the general sessions case, we were subpoenaed for production of documentation and that was early January of this year, of which we did provide all of the invoices and receipts for discovery at that time. Since the arraignment in this case has proceeded, I've not received any motions for discovery for my information. However, I did turn it all over to the state for them to have access to put in their file as well. So with that, back in January, when we did give Ms. Sykes' attorney at that time, the General Sessions Court did appoint her an attorney in our case as well. And she had asked for a 3-week continuance to review our receipts and records at that time, which we did agree to, knowing that the defense knows every day that goes by, the costs are increasing, which that's part of their argument, is that the costs are too high. Today, we stand at 237 days we've had to take care of these animals, 17 in total. It is not cheap. And additionally, Ms. Sykes was aware of our daily costs back in September. And again, there has been numerous requests for continuances on the defense side. ARC has not caused any delay in this. Secondarily, there has been a lot of confusion regarding whether this case is civil or criminal, etc. The last time we were here, I did reference State versus Tilley, which is a Court of Appeals opinion that does interpret this statute. They interpret this statute as this is a criminal matter. So with that, again, it's very clear as far as the opinion that this is not civil. This is not a civil matter, although we do see where the confusion lies in us being a third-party petitioner in a criminal case that is unique, which also this case is unique. So that is part of why we're running into some of this confusion. And so we believe that the Court of Appeals has made it clear that this is part of the criminal case. And it is not my, opinion to say whether his representation extends to that, as far as what his scope of representation is for Ms. Sykes.
Well, let me interrupt you and ask you,
Yes.
Do you have a copy of that decision, of that appellate court decision?
I do.
All right, go ahead, I interrupted you.
So we are able today, we have all of our witnesses. We're able to put on all of the proof, and we are able also to provide them any documentation that's requested that, again, we believe they've had access to.
What, if you don't mind stating for the record, what is the Animal Rescue Corps asking for in the way of a bond under that statute?
Yes, so at this point, we are asking for all expenses, boarding and medical services that have been rendered to these animals in the last 237 days. We're asking for an order today to be issued for our incurred expenses to date. And then it's the judge's discretion as far as how you wish to fund the expenses as her criminal case continues, because the statute's clear that this bond is to cover until the disposition of her criminal case.
So are you asking for a judgment against Ms. Sykes for those funds? Or that have already been expended, or are you asking for a bond to ensure payment? Because under the criminal law, she's presumed to be innocent of these charges, and we have to balance that with ordering her to pay some amount out of her pocket. Now, that's different than posting a bond to secure the cost of the animals. And if she's, let's say I set a bond of $250,000, just picking something out of the thin air to secure the cost, and that's the amount of the bond she would have to provide. And she can't do that. She's got an appointed attorney because she is found to be indigent. Then what happens to the animals then? So that Ms. Sykes understands, and the record is clear, what would be under that statute the next step?
Sure. So regarding, I believe, State versus Tilley addresses that this is a security bond order to cover the cost. And it is a pre-trial matter. So it's before her criminal case is decided. And therefore, the statute also addresses that failure to pay the bond within 10 business days would deem her to have abandoned the animals, as she has a financial duty to care for these animals, regardless of if she has custody or not. This is the way the statute reads, that then the animals would be abandoned by her, and they would then be forfeited to the responding agency, which Cheatham County Animal Control and ARC haven't worked out that ARC would be deemed the owner since they've incurred the expenses today.
All right. Let me hear from the state to see
Sure.
whether
Thank
Mr.
you.
Holland has anything to add. So,
Your Honor, I think if we follow the case law here and call it criminal, I may have some of the similar concerns that Mr. Vaughn had about the extension of our practice and or external attorneys. I'm unclear if it is criminal outside of a special prosecutor for victims where I can have outside counsel assisting the state.
well, let
in
me,
a hearing.
I'm going to take a recess and read this case, and that will assist me in determining what exactly the status of it is, what Mr. Vaughn's position is regarding this case, as well as what your office's obligations are. But clearly, this is a state statute that was adopted by our legislature, and therefore it has to be followed, absent some finding it's unconstitutional. Now, another question is exactly what are we talking about as far as the financials that you say you've not been able to review, Mr. Vaughn?
7 months worth of keeping 14 animals being more than $240,000. It seems criminal. If we're talking about criminal civil, that sounds criminal.
Well, that figure is maybe what I picked out of the air.
No,
I
that's
don't-
what she said.
Your Honor,
That is not what I said, Your Honor.
It's boarding costs, it's veterinary care, it's food, it's feed, it's medicine, it's basic standard costs for the animals. For my review of the material, there's very little, if any, surplus in there. It's their toys for enrichment purposes, it's food, it's medicine, it's veterinary care, and it's boarding costs.
All right, I'm gonna take a recess, read this case, come back, and I'll tell you what we're doing today and what we're not. So.
All right.